Introducing YouTube memberships, a fun way to support the channel while getting some exclusive perks. Click the join button to become a member now and get benefits like badges next to your name on videos, behind-the-scenes photos, advantages during the live trivia game, discounts on merchandise, private one-on-one video chats, the ability to request future video topics, and exclusive 8 to 10 minute videos on the history of the NFL. And now, on with our feature presentation. In the wake of John F. Kennedy's assassination, there were many questions about what the National Football League should do, especially in light of the American Football League's decision to postpone all of the games and let the country grieve for the weekend. Should the games go on, or should they be canceled? Famously, or infamously depending on how you want to look at it, the NFL made the decision to continue the games as though nothing had happened, with this being business as usual, seeing as Kennedy himself was a football fan. Years later, Commissioner Rozelle would come to regret this decision, and more so than the 1982 strike or the 1987 strike, would say that this was the worst moment of his professional football career to play the games in the wake of this tragedy. However, you had fans that were very split on the decision, with some fans agreeing that the game should be played, that some sense of normalcy should occur, and that life has to go on at some point, and some fans disagreeing and saying that the game should not be played, and that focusing on football at a time like this seems incredibly trivial and insensitive. But your stance is on this, and let me know in the comments down below whether you think Rozelle made the right call here. What some fans decided to do as a matter of voicing their displeasure was highly questionable to say the least. Because during a game between the New York Giants and the St. Louis Cardinals, two fans by the names of Kenny Burns and Jim Fargaro decided to attend the game and do something absolutely insane that deserves a deep dive 60 years later. Because I have no idea just what the heck they were trying to accomplish, as the plan makes even less sense when you break it down and think about it for more than 5 seconds. Because this is the story behind one of the dumbest protests and dumbest football-related controversies of the JFK assassination. Before I talk about the actual protest in question, and just how dumb it was, because I'm struggling to understand any of the logic employed here in this decision, we need some context to understand the game that was being played that served as the backdrop to this bizarre moment. It's November 24th, 1963. It's week 11 of the NFL season, and we've got an absolutely big game on our hands at Yankee Stadium in the Eastern Conference between the New York Giants and the St. Louis Cardinals. None of the games were televised on this day because CBS was devoting nothing but coverage to JFK's assassination. But if the games were televised, this game would be the one that the bulk of the country would be watching and would have their eyes glued to, as this game had massive implications on the season. Back in 1963, you had to win your conference in order to make it to the NFL championship. There were no ifs, ands, or buts about it, so it was first place or nothing. And for this game, the Giants entered at 8-2, sitting in first place in the East, looking to win their 3rd straight conference title, while the Cardinals were right behind them at 7-3. If the Cardinals lost this game, then they'd be 2 back of the Giants with 3 to play, and barring something crazy and an unforeseen collapse on the part of New York, their season was just about over. If the Cardinals won this game, however, then there would be a tie atop the conference heading into Thanksgiving. And that's where things would get really interesting. So this game obviously had huge implications, and you're watching this game unfold right now. Because yes, there is somehow footage of this game available from 1963, even though none of the games were being broadcast or televised. And what we got was a game that lived up to the hype and was sure to make the ending to the 1963 season all the more interesting. Because when all was said and done, the Cardinals prevailed by a final score of 24-17, thanks to 2 touchdown passes by Charlie Johnson, including the game winner in the 4th quarter to Bobby Joe Conrad from 3 yards out. As a side note, to learn more about Conrad and his incredible career with the Cardinals, click the card in the upper right corner. Despite the fact that the Cards were heavy underdogs on this day, especially since just 3 weeks before, when the teams met in St. Louis, the Giants won by 17 points and forced 7 turnovers, that didn't matter, as the Cards rebounded and got their revenge to tie the Giants atop first place in the conference, thanks in part to forcing 4 turnovers and winning that margin quite handily. It was a big win for the Cardinals on a day where football didn't necessarily feel that big, especially since as the game was taking place, Lee Harvey Oswald, the man who killed John F. Kennedy, was killed himself. Having said that, one of the interesting things about the assassination from a football perspective is the fact that even though there was a ton of debate about whether to play the games or not, and even though the opinion heavily weighed in favor of not playing, with many players, fans, coaches, owners, and media members criticizing Pete Rozelle in the wake of this decision, the stands were full. Many people were looking for a distraction. Many people were looking for some sense of normalcy, and were looking for something to get their mind off of things to forget, at least for a few hours, that the world as they knew it was upside down. And it seemed like there were 3 prevailing camps, which made sense. You had the fans that went to the game and didn't think twice about it. You had the fans that didn't go to the game and stayed home, either because they were still in mourning or because they felt it would be disrespectful, and the fans that went to the games but didn't agree with the decision. It's very similar to the camps that took place in 1987 during the replacement games. Now, there were some fans that were very nuanced in their reaction to this tragedy and in their reaction to playing the game they've been watching this whole time between the Giants and the Cardinals. Hall of Famer Ken Strong, who played for the Giants from 1933 to 47 and went to the game as a fan, said on the decision to play, "I think they're right in playing. Tomorrow, we mourn. Had Kennedy been buried today, it would have been different. The president wanted to build the economy of the nation, not tear it down by stopping things." Another fan, a student from Cornell by the name of Harvey Mays, said, "I'm glad they played. This was my one chance to see them. I agree with Mr. Rozelle that the president was a football fan, and maybe wanted it this way." There were some fans that went to the game, but not necessarily because they wanted to. They either figured that since they were playing, they might as well be here, or they needed something to get out of the house, or they had the tickets already and didn't want to waste the money. My favorite reaction, by far, was from a school teacher who said, "It's ridiculous to be playing." Then, when he was naturally asked a follow-up question from reporter Dick Young as to why he was here, responded by saying, "Because there's nothing else to do." I have no notes. That's amazing. However, there were 2 fans that hatched up a brilliant plan to show that this was the wrong move and voiced their displeasure. And by brilliant, I mean absolutely stupid. Because folks, of all the ways to protest a decision that you don't agree with, this might be the worst one of them all. Because I genuinely have no idea what the heck this even accomplishes. There were 2 fans that had a, shall we say, interesting approach to the game about to take place inside of Yankee Stadium. These were 2 season ticket holders by the names of Kenny Burns and Jim Fargardo. Not much is known about them before this date in 1963 or after this date in 1963. All we know is what they did on this day other than the incident at hand. Now, Burns and Fargardo were caught between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, they were Giants fans. This was the biggest game of the season, and they had not just any old tickets to the game, but midfield tickets, as in the best tickets that you can possibly have. On the other hand, they weren't thinking about football at a time like this. They couldn't believe that this game was being played. They felt that this day, just 2 days after the president's assassination, was no such time for a football game to be played, because of how trivial it felt. They did not want to go to the game, but at the same time, they already had tickets. What the heck do you do? Well, you have a few options. Option 1 is to just eat the loss. Don't go to the game, stay at home, stay in your period of mourning, which you have every right to do, and just leave the seats empty that way while watching the news and listening to the radio. Option 2 is to find someone who does want to go to the game and sell the tickets to them. And trust me, there were a ton of people that wanted the tickets to this game, because the only way to follow along was on the radio due to blackout rules at the time preventing any broadcast of the game on television in the home market. However, the radio broadcast was canceled, as there was no radio coverage of the game due to the coverage being devoted to JFK and grieving. The only way to follow the game was inside the stadium. So if you didn't want to go to the game or anything like that, you could have given the tickets to someone else. Option 3 was to just get a refund. Much like teams in 2020 were accommodating of fans who didn't feel comfortable going to the games due to the pandemic, the Giants were more than accommodating of any fans who did not feel comfortable attending the game on this day, and were more than willing to allow fans to get their money back. Owner Jack Mara put out a statement saying, "The National Football League has decided that all games will be played today, as scheduled. Despite deep personal grief, and with full realization of our national tragedy, the New York Giants respect this decision. Ticket holders who do not attend may obtain refunds by mailing their unused tickets to Yankee Stadium." Translation: we're ticked off. We don't agree with the decision to play the game, but there's nothing we can do about it. If you don't want to come, we don't blame you. All of these seem like pretty reasonable options if you don't want to attend. Give the tickets to fans who want them, don't go to the game, or get a refund. And that's where Burns and Fergardo decided to do something interesting. Because Burns and Fergardo decided to go to Yankee Stadium, decided to pay the fare for parking or transportation or however they got there, and then got right outside the stadium and tore up the tickets. Said Fergardo, "We've been looking forward to going to this game. Anyone can tell you how hard it is to get these tickets. But out of respect for the president, we're not going in. I'll show you." And then he tore up his ticket as it lay on the ground outside of Yankee Stadium in the cold weather. Burns then followed him. Alright, now look. A protest done right can be highly effective. Heck, the backbone of this nation was built off of protesting. If it wasn't for people in colonial times protesting the unfair policies of the British, the United States of America as we know it does not exist today. But of all the protests I've seen, this one might rank up there with one of the dumbest ones of them all. This is the equivalent of a company doing something that you don't agree with, so you buy their product to destroy it. Like they already have your money. They already have your freaking money. They don't care what you do with it at that point. You already gave them your money. So whether you go or don't go literally makes no difference to their bottom line. This was your plan to stick it to the Giants, who had nothing to do with this, and to the NFL? Go to the stadium with tickets that you paid for, and then rip them up instead of getting a refund, which actually would hurt their bottom line more? The reason that you're not going to the game is out of respect for Kennedy, which means presumably that no one should be doing anything, and everyone should be in a state of mourning. And if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. But then, how do you explain going to the stadium? That doesn't seem to be mourning anything now, does it? How can you be mourning when you are doing literally everything you would be doing if you were actually going to the game, minus the part where you actually go to the game? And it's not like they were protesting outside the stadium with picket signs or anything like that, because that would be different. They just went to the stadium on their own accord, tore up the tickets, and left. That's like saying I don't agree with my school's decision to hold class in the wake of a school-wide incident. So I'm going to go to school, stand outside the building for a second, flip the bird at the building, and then immediately leave. What does that accomplish? Seriously, what the heck does that accomplish? You sure showed them. It's the dumbest attempt at a protest I've seen by any fans. When the fans protested in 1987, the fact that the replacement games were being played, they actually stood outside the stadium and, protested. They didn't all just go to the stadium, wave hi to the building, wave hi to an inanimate object, and then leave. I've seen 4-year-olds protest their bedtime more effectively and with more critical thinking skills than these two men. So you're going to go to the stadium and do everything exactly the same. You already gave them your money, and then you're just gonna leave, and no one else is gonna notice. Genius. Absolutely genius. Whatever made them sleep at night. And again, like I said before regarding these two fans and the game between these two teams behind me right here, we don't know anything about them besides this incident. We don't know if the Giants took punishment against them. We don't know if they kept their season tickets going forward. We don't know their careers, when they were born, when they died, if they're still alive. We don't know any of that. But I'm going to take a wild guess and say that because 63,000 people attended this game and the line was out the door to get into the stadium, that this protest, which was done pretty much in private, was not all that effective. So, good job, guys. Look, you can agree or disagree with the decision about whether it was the right idea to play the games on this day. It is still a hot topic 60 years later. But at the very least, if you're going to protest the decision, then stand for something, and don't do, well, whatever the heck this was. You gave the league and the team your money. You're not doing this as a demonstration for other people. You're not trying to stop others by going in. You say that the game shouldn't be played because the country should be in mourning and no one should be doing anything. Yet here you are, not mourning, and by being out and about. The hypocrisy here is actually hysterical, because 60 years later, I have no idea just what the heck Burns and Ferraro were trying to do or trying to accomplish. Because when it came to this 1963 battle between the St. Louis Cardinals and the New York Giants, what Burns and Ferraro tried to accomplish was nothing short of a giant failure. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.